I guess I really don't know what Christmas is all about. Isn't there anyone who knows what Christmas is all about?
I can tell you what Christmas is all about.
Chestnuts roasting, Jack Frost nipping at your nose. So I'm offering this simple phrase. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. Chestnuts roasting, Jack Frost nipping at your nose. So I'm offering this simple phrase. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you.
I can tell you what Christmas is all about.
Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas.
That's what Christmas is all about.
Well, hey everybody. I'm just getting set up here. Mr. Mark Hurlman should be here fairly soon. We'll be kicked off for an episode of Star Wars Report. We're gonna be hanging out, talking all things Boba Fett. Boba Fett? What's up, Stephanie? How's it going, man? How's life? I'm excited. I'm also kind of excited of all people to have on the podcast tonight is Mark. Because I think Mark's gonna have some interesting perspective and background on the story of Boba Fett, like over the course as it's evolved over the years. So I think that'll be pretty cool. It's interesting. A lot's been said about him, and I'm kind of excited. I also wanted, if Mark gets on a little early, I kind of want to get his thoughts on the return of Ahsoka. So we'll see if we can do that. But I have my new festive attire room. I even got it's working. I have like not the greatest webcam, let's be honest, but I've got a ring light for it to make it better. Hopefully, I'm working on it. I'm working on the setup here to make it a little bit better for the live stream and hanging out. Yeah. Yeah, JDL, I do. Mark's a passionate guy. I have a feeling he's gonna have some strong opinions, so it's gonna be a fun time. It's funny. I was just watching with my wife Savannah. We were watching what's it called, The Polar Express, which is really good. It's a traditional Christmas movie that my family's watched for years. Usually it's like it's a put it on in the background kind of movie while we're wrapping presents, maybe decorating the Christmas tree. But it's sort of there's certain movies that are traditional around Christmas time. The holiday special is not one of them. But man, Polar Express is, and it's good. The animation's dated, but it works really well. Oh, welcome, Adam. Yes. Save the Bothans. Wear a mask. We're almost there, folks. We're so close. Oh, Stephanie, underrated. I assume there's a slight delay here, but I assume you're talking about the Polar Express is underrated. I do. If that's what you're talking about, yes, it is underrated. It's a great Christmas movie. Yeah, it is. It is. The music, Tom Hanks. Also Tom Hanks. Yeah, it's amazing. Oh, interesting. So Die Hard, Gremlins, Batman Returns. Your three favorites? Do you guys have any? I'm actually kind of curious. Do you have any favorite Star Wars movies you watch over the holidays? Because I was trying to think, like, not really during Christmas, but definitely like New Year's. For years and years, we've done the A New Hope thing, watching the Death Star explode at midnight, which I plan on carrying on that tradition this time around. I don't know if we're gonna live stream it. Maybe we will. Of all the years to do a live stream, 2020 and New Year's is the year to do it. So maybe we will do a live stream of watching the Death Star explode at midnight on New Year's. That'd be pretty cool. Adam, do you wait for Star Wars movies to air on TV, or have you shifted over to Disney Plus? That's what I want to know, because I actually I've been watching a lot more Star Wars since Disney Plus, because I just put it on the background. It's kind of become like put on the background while we fall asleep movies. Not in a bad way, but yeah. Star Wars is good for all holidays, but I feel like it's better for some than others. Christmas, good. New Year's, great. I think that'd be fun. Although, here's a question. If we did a live stream, or if we did a sort of watch together for A New Hope for the Death Star exploding at midnight, would we want to stick to that? Would we want to do the traditional Death Star from A New Hope? Or should we, like, do Return of the Jedi? or Star Killer Base or something to be like countercultural, because it's like a thing now. Everybody does it. So do we want to do what everybody does and watch A New Hope at midnight New Year's Eve, or should we do something? I saw some pretty hilarious ones. The Trade Federation explode. Obi-Wan saying, "Hello there," ringing in the new year. "Hello there." A different super weapon for different time zones. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I guess we have another. The East Coast, although I can't stay up that late. East Coast, I couldn't do it. I think I've only got the normal midnight, and then that would be all I could do. But it's become, I don't know, it's funny because I started doing it with Jason and Jimmy and the Force Cast, and they started off this tradition years ago. This is like probably 10 years ago is the first time I did this. And it's kind of become a thing, a family tradition within my family. And like, they don't know the internet culture or anybody else who does it. They just know that it's something that we do every year that we can. So it's sad. We can't, my family's not gathering for New Year's, sadly. But that kind of gives me all the more incentive to maybe do something like a live stream, because it's a lot easier, especially for like a family holiday. I've done the live stream a couple years, and then for other times, especially if the family's around and you're gathering, it becomes a little awkward to try to like say, "Sorry guys," while everybody kind of hangs out and visits or gets ready to celebrate the new year, ringing in the new year. I'm just gonna go off into my little studio and record the live podcast. The one time we did do it, though, that was probably the most fun, was with Scott Rifen, which to this day is still our most viewed Facebook video of all time. Is literally just us live streaming the Death Star exploding, which is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, I had a good time. Do. Let's see if we've heard from Mr. Hurleyman. Bum ba dum bum. Adam, I just saw your request. The sad thing is, I can't on YouTube. They'll literally give me a copyright strike if I play any of those. That's why I'm playing very generic, copyright-free, live stream friendly Christmas music, because I can't play "What Can You Get a Wookiee for Christmas?" I can't, sadly. it makes me sad. But that's the reality of live streaming has come a long way, and by that I mean the copyright technology that they have for it has come a long way. Lord have mercy. What are you gonna do? Oh, here's an interesting question for the chat. I just heard from Mark. He should be here in just a second. But what is the coolest, not a comb, I'm assuming, but what is the coolest Christmas present that's Star Wars that you've ever gotten? That's what I want to know. Oh, look. Looks like it might be a Hurleman. Hey, bro. Hello?
Hello there.
Hello there. Us, Doctor. Welcome.
Kenobi.
Welcome. We are live as we speak. Look at that. How crazy is that, Mark? How's that?
Where are we live at?
Well, the easiest place to remember, because I just made it a thing, is StarWarsReport.com/EchoBase.
Ooh, I like it.
Because it's wintry, right? You know, it's wintry themed. So
Cold down here. It feels like Echo Base.
exactly. Well, but that link that redirects right over to my YouTube channel. So that's where I'm just kind of experimenting, hanging out live. So we got some folks with us. Adam, Stuffity, a few folks join us live. So do you guys join us live? Thanks. I just posed a question to the chat, which I'm going to pose to you, Hurleman, if you're ready. Actually, you know what? Here, I should probably pause my actual background music and make it official. What do you say? Should we make it official? Let's make it official. All right. This is a Star Wars Report Patreon exclusive Rogue transmission. All right, now it's official, right? Mr. Hurleman, what is the coolest Star Wars present you've ever gotten for Christmas?
Dang, man, that's a good one. Let me. Ooh.
I'll let you think about it for a second, because in the chat,
I'm like, I've got to be clear in my mind what were birthday versus Christmas gifts, though. That's all I'm like.
that's true. Well, I mean, we can rope in birthday if we need to. JT Deal said, this year, my soon-to-be 6-year-old daughter wants a Baby Yoda toy. I love being able to share a little bit of Star Wars with one of my daughters. Oh, that's cute. That's adorable. Oh, Adam said two things. One, whatever I buy myself. Fair.
Right.
That's
right.
fair. And two, probably the Millennium and Stephanie's like the Millennium Falcon drone. I remember that. That was pretty cool when those drones came out.
Oh yeah, those were good. For me, I think it was the Dark Horse Comics, Luke Skywalker, The Last Hope of the Galaxy. That big omnibus hardcover.
Yeah.
I got that. That was, I got it actually in November, but I had to wrap it and put it. I didn't wrap it, but I didn't get to touch it for a whole month. But yeah, that was one I definitely spent hours in. Outside of just, getting figures, because I'm a nut for that damn 6-inch Black Series.
Yeah, no. Well, let me. Could I snag for you? Sorry, a little business here, but could I snag some video from you if you got it working? Mm-hmm. Let's see if we can get the and for you guys, we'll see if we can get our live shots all organized. Oh, look at that! It looks fantastic. Julian said my wife got me the Blu-ray set of the original 2 years ago, and that was the first time I ever watched the originals. Now I love the originals. No way! Huh. Nice. That's interesting. First time watching them on Blu-ray. That's not a bad way to start. Right. Yeah. Do you have anything at the top of your Christmas list, Star Warsy, Hurleman?
that I'm hoping to get this year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I put Squadrons down.
Oh.
I was big on that. Although, to be fair, I still have to finish Fallen Empire or Fallen Order. I've gotten to Kashyyyk, I think, and then I kind of just dripped out, man. I haven't played it as much as I should, or as much as I played the Spider-Man game, and now my son's getting Miles Morales, and I'm looking forward to playing that. So I'm like, and then I was like, wait, there is a Star Wars game out, Squadron. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that my wife's got me that. Yeah, but she hasn't told me because like most of my other gifts, I already know what I'm getting.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I'm like, I hate Christmas. I'm the easiest to shop for, but the hardest because they I don't know why it's so hard. I don't care if I get the same figure I've had once or twice. I'll cut one up. There's things I'll do. I mean, I like a good diorama.
Does your family do the thing where they like, I don't know what to get you. You have everything that's Star Wars.
Oh yeah. But like I told my mom, I'm like, you can always just give me an Iguana Comics gift card, and I can go down there and get, because there's stuff out there that I could easily tell them, give me anything from, I want to say Hot Topic, but that's not the case.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
What the heck is that?
That mall store. I can't think of it.
No. The slideshow. Collectibles. Anything. I have nothing from the slideshow lines. So I mean, anything like, but those, the price tags on those, they'd balk immediately. Like, yeah, right, nerd.
Yeah, they can be a little pricey, just a wee bit, just a wee bit. I'm trying to think of, like, for me, anything that's crazy special. Oh, Adam has the coolest it was kind of a gift. He got a ticket to the 7-episode marathon when The Force Awakens debuted. I remember those tickets. Like, it was a big deal that a lot of theaters were running 7 episodes concurrent, leading up to the midnight premiere of The Force Awakens. And I think I would die. I don't know if I could do well, I say that. I did, and I've got the posters behind me to prove it. I went to the extended edition of Lord of the Rings. They did a big promo when they came out on Blu-ray. They did a tie-in theatrical release where they did a marathon of all 3 extended edition of Lord of the Rings in one day, and I did it, and I loved it. I went and saw it with my mom and my sister. We camped out at the movie theater all day. We just hung out. It was amazing.
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely something that this year has hit hard.
Yep, that's true.
Looking forward to getting to watch Star Wars at Christmas time again, even if it's an older film replayed. That'll be fun to do again.
Yeah. No, I think, and we were talking before you hopped on, but like I think I might try. It depends on what me and the wife are doing. I think we're just gonna do a trip ourselves because we can't really do a family gathering yet. So I think we're just going to do a little trip ourselves, but a conversation might happen between me and my significant other as to whether or not I can get permission to do a take away from any celebrations that we would otherwise do and do like a Star Wars centric live stream commentary party for New Year's Eve. Because there's a year to do it, right? This is the year. No, 2020 is the time to do.
That's true, because my scouting program has been suffering from all this, and so we were really looking forward to doing a December Christmas Court of Honor, and now it's going to be like all the others. It's going to be digital, and the boys are so disappointed. And I'm just like, you guys have an opportunity to, like, you guys could be making like a mini little movie documentary. You guys could be silly. You guys, there's so many opportunities here with just your phones and being at home. I mean, you watch what they do with the cast of Hamilton, just for a fan of the show with a Zoom call. It's like, you guys got to start thinking outside the box here. I mean, there's so many opportunities. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that too. Like, we've got MandoCast, thanks to Michael Morris, bringing that to the Star Wars Report website, Second Airborne Division podcast. And I was thinking, like, how much fun that must be for Michael after every episode to just sit down and jam. And then, of course, he had me on for the episode, the No, I wasn't on for the Jedi. Was I? No, I was on for the Bo-Katan.
Oh yeah. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah,
that was so good, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to be able to get on there and just shoot the proverbial Sith about what's been happening, I think it reminds me of when they were doing that with The Walking Dead and stuff right afterwards, and Chris Hardwick was doing
that
his
Chris
own
Hardwick
show.
the after show thing. Yeah, no, that's
Right,
kind of what it is,
right.
really, which is a lot of fun.
And right now with COVID, it's like the opportunity to get a bigger audience than we normally would have. Like even with these little live shows and stuff, having so many people in the YouTube chat and stuff.
Yeah.
Is pretty cool. I mean, it's kind of like bringing it back, man.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't done that since Bethany was on the show live all the time.
I know, it's been a hot second. I bought a ring light. That's how serious I am about this.
Ooh,
I have a ring light.
I almost got one, and now looking at how washed out I am with this one, and how awesome you look with yours, I'm like,
I did,
$20 well spent.
And I kind of mentioned the latest edition. I've swapped out the prequel or the original trilogy posters for Lord of the Rings, and I think they'll probably hang out there for a little while. And I imagine probably the prequel posters, basically any trilogy of posters that I can get, is my plan to get going. So that'll be nice. But well, sir, it's that time. It's time to actually do a real show, the regular show. I have my notes up. I'm shooting for 30, 45 minutes tops is what I've got until I gotta start getting ready for bed because I have an early start at work tomorrow. But I'm excited to be talking to you pretty much all about Boba Fett. That's all we're going to pretty much talk about this episode. I mean, there's some other stuff going on, too. So for those of you guys in the chat, thanks for coming in. We're going to get ready to start the Star Wars Report podcast proper in, well, about 3, 2, and 1.
This week's episode of the Star Wars Report is brought to you by the good folks supporting us over on patreon.com/Star Wars Report.
Let's do the show, folks.
Come.
And who might you be?
It's the Star Wars Report.
Star Wars Report!
Star Wars Report. The place for Star Wars news, features, interviews, and more.
Then we can do something epic.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Please delete as appropriate.
The Force. It's calling to you. Just let it in.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Star Wars Report podcast. I'm your host, Riley Blanton. Glad to have you on board. Welcome to everybody joining us in the chat at StarWarsReport.com/EchoBase. Hanging out here in the snow. He looks like he's hanging out in the snow, that's for sure. He's dressed warmly enough. Joining me, once again, is my old buddy. It's Mr. Mark Hurlman. How's it going, Mark? How's life?
Oh, it is cold, man. I'm down in the basement, and I can feel it. It definitely feels like it's almost 40 outside. Doing good, though, man. It's good time to be a Star Wars fan. And I feel like we say that a lot, but every time I say it, I feel like it's true.
It's true, and it's the best time of year, I think. Even without a new Star Wars movie, we're getting something, I mean, honestly, let's be honest, right? Just as good. Just as good as a new Star Wars movie. It's The Mandalorian. It's insane. It's crazy. Like, literally, that's what we're going to talk about. I try not to encroach on MandoCast. They do a proper job breaking down each episode bit by bit. But here on the Star Wars Report, I have to just talk to you about one dude. And spoilers abound for this week's episode of Mandalorian. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that was your warning. It's time to talk Boba Fett.
We have something to report. Come closer, I have good news.
Data brought to us by the Bothan spies.
You can send a clear transmission.
There it is. Listen.
Boba Fett. See, there's a... Get it? That's what he says in Return of the Jedi. Boba Fett. Boba Fett. He's back. And kicking Mandalorian butt. I have to talk to you about it, Mr. Hurlman, because you're the guy. Give us some context. Your first impression of Fett making his appearance in The Mandalorian. Were you surprised? What was your first reaction?
Well, I mean, I'm locking in on this last episode, of course, but that question's so much broader. When we first saw Boba on the back plane there, I had my feelings last season when I heard the Spurs. I was pretty convinced then. But when we went back and we saw Tatooine and we see him standing there with the Gaddafi stick on one side and the rifle on the other, and he turns around and we're like, oh my God, it's him.
Yeah.
Like I squeed. There was a lot of squeeing. Like, in fact, every time Fett shows up, there is a part of me that just gets overridden with joy. The fact that we brought him back in canon is definitely one of those, like, oh my God, they gave me my own slice of fan service. I can't believe this. I've always loved the fact that Boba Fett's adventure in Legends went the way it did. So, when he died again in the Sarlacc, and they're like, nope, he's dead again. He's dead. That's it. Canon. It was always canon. He always died in canon. And I was like, no, dang it. No, there was so many opportunities. But man, the way they delivered it, there's still questions that I have. Like, why didn't he go after the armor sooner? Why, why did he let Cobb wear it for as long as he did? But I'm looking forward to all these things because some people are really upset about the fact that Boba Fett showed up in The Mandalorian. For me, I'm like, the second they announced that show and said The Mandalorian, I was immediately like, ooh, dude, this is a great time to address that whole Almec lying situation from the Clone Wars, where they tried saying that he wasn't a Mandalorian. And I've been saying that for how many years now? I'm in love with what's going on in The Mandalorian, man. I'm so excited.
Well, we're going to dig into the episode a little bit, but I felt, and that's one reason I'm glad to have you on this week, Mark, because I think you can put some context for us, because Dave Filoni is a big part of The Mandalorian, especially this season. He's been cutting his teeth in live-action Star Wars. I think all of fandom's really we're keeping our eye on we're watching his career with great interest. But no, his role has expanded at Lucasfilm through this series. But I mean, let's remember, Dave was the one who spearheaded George's vision, very alternative vision of what Mandalore and Mandalorians are and were in the Clone Wars, the pacifist era. And then like Death Watch and these other factions were splinter groups. It wasn't the epic Jedi versus Mandalorian Karen Travis version of the mythology. But it's kind of interesting in that we've sort of I feel like Dave's come full circle and incorporated a lot of that historical warrior ethos of Mandalorian culture back into the show, particularly through this, quote unquote cult, as Bo-Katan called it. And I'm just kind of curious how you now, as a big fan of Karen Travis and the Republic Commando series and the the whole culture of Mandalorians, how you feel it fits now that Boba Fett, the quintessential one, is back in the spotlight.
Well, one thing I've noticed that I've been able to swallow more is the state of Mandalore. Okay. When they first tried to do that, well, it's all devastated from the battles. I was like, but it was a jungle world. Like, so I've got that. Legends, it still can have its thing. But now I'm able to just embrace it. And I think about, the different things they've brought up, like especially in this last episode where they talk about the Mandalorian Civil Wars and stuff. I mean, that's basically loosely open seasons, where we see, Jaster Mirrell's group and Death Watch splitting and then fighting and everything. So to see that, kind of unfold at some point, even if it's just in backstory narrative, will be kind of cool. Just having it thrown out there is awesome because, I mean, you think about that's the same thing that Obi-Wan did with the Clone Wars. When we first got that in A New Hope, it was like, wait, tell me more about that. Wait, I have to know. And getting that, I think, is an exciting thing. And to bring Boba Fett back the way they have and to do what they've done in these last couple episodes with, justifying Jango being a foundling, which makes me question more now because of The Mandalorian if foundling in this term meant that Jango was also part of Din's clan, or if they mean foundling just in loose, just straight Mandalorian terms, the way Mandalorians from Legends were. It was like anybody we brought in basically was a foundling. So, I mean, there's still different aspects of all the different angles of the culture from Legends and this, that as it evolves we learn more on canon and it solidifies. I love the fact that Filoni picks things from Legends. I always had the feeling when he was doing Clone Wars that he was trying to steer Lucas into those waters, but at the same time he was like, well, we can't let him get too wild because he will restructure this dang river, and we can't really do that.
Well, but I'm curious. So I just want to know, kind of educate me on this concept of a foundling in Mandalorian culture, which they now sort of explicitly say, yeah, Jango Fett was a foundling, and therefore Boba Fett got his armor, and he sort of defends his right, even according to the code of, the Mandalorian we know, that he has the right to his armor because his father was a foundling and adopted their culture, which is sort of ties a neat bow on that whole controversy back in the Clone Wars. Like, Jango Fett wasn't a Mandalorian; he doesn't count. Like, it's almost. Is it too convenient? I don't know.
I could see the argument for it being too convenient, but think about this too. If Bo-Katan hadn't had her conversation with Din would not have given up that armor to Boba Fett. But because he had that conversation and he knows that his clan is more a, hardcore, group, fanatical in a sense almost, he realizes there are other factions out there like Bo and Death Watch and stuff that take off their helmets. So clearly they're still Mandalorian. Yeah. They don't have the same beliefs as him, but he respects the fact that in the end, we're all Mandalorians and we're here serving the same purpose, which is just to support the way, I guess. But yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, if you hadn't had that moment, you'd probably had a totally different interaction there when Jango is trying to claim the armor. Because, I mean, for a moment, he's like, well, you don't have any claim to this. This is Mandalorian.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it really is interesting how I don't know how they've really artfully been able to pull this whole thing together in a way that I think makes Mandalorian culture complex and interesting and not just one note. Like just the warriors who fought a bunch of Jedi and that's all they ever did. Like, no, there's different factions. There's different, like anything, like Star Wars in general. And this is something that's right up your alley, Mark, but Star Wars in general is always giving you new layers to delve into when it comes to factions and politics. And there's just always, it's an onion. Like Star Wars had on its surface level is your hero's journey story, but the world building and the world is such an onion that you can peel back those layers, and that's one thing I think Mandalorian has done really well. But like one thing I thought Mandalorian this episode was, I think almost expert in that they didn't tell the story, and I'm not sure how I feel about this. But I'll pull this little quote from a New York Times article. You can read this whole interview with Tamara Morrison. And actually this week I'll probably on Rogue Transmissions on our Patreon, I'll tag on our interview with Tim Morrison a couple years back that we did before we knew all this, but it might be fun to revisit that interview. But he was interviewed by the New York Times and they asked him, I know you're going to get this question a lot, but the tragedy, that's the episode, doesn't address how Boba Fett survived his encounter with the Sarlacc. Has that been explained to you? And do you know how the character stayed alive? And in perfect hibernate. No. And Tamara Morrison said, no, I don't. There's quite a bit of loose ends, and I'm not one of those guys who knows much about the actual history. The fans of Star Wars, they have a better knowledge of what's happened. How can he still be alive? I thought he was stuck in this place. I can find out more on the internet. I can find out more on the internet. That's my. I imagine Tim Morrison just being like, no, I don't know. There's quite a bit of loose ends. That's kind of how he talks. Oh, nice. Is that the Unleashed figure?
The They've got a figure for it. Yes, Star Wars Unleashed. He used the jetpack.
I'm glad for those of you on the audio podcast, you missed it, but I think that was the Unleashed figure. Of Boba Fett,
the big Unleashed, those big statues.
But do we? So I guess this. All right, I'll go there. Give me a moment to just maybe articulate one of my frustrations with the Mandalorian and where we are, because I loved the episode, but I have a hard time the telling. There's a lot of talking. Like, it's funny because for an action episode that shows Boba Fett return and kick butt and just totally destroy, and then there's a team up, and it's like the I don't know, the Star Wars equivalent of the Avengers is like coming together to go save Baby Yoda, right? It's amazing. I love all those parts, but there's a lot. What could have been a really compelling flashback, what could have been like those powerful visuals of like the gauntlet clawing its way out of the pit, even just like a shadowy like cold open of like previously, 5 years ago, and something that explains who Boba Fett is now and what makes him tick now, that makes us invested in him as a character, not just it's Boba Fett, because let's be honest, right? The character is so iconic, you can do that. You can be like, it's Boba Fett, he's back, watch it. That's literally what they can be.
It's coming. They're going to fulfill your wish with one character showing up, and that character is Cad Bane.
No way. No
Dude,
way.
think about it. Cad Bane is the reason Boba Fett is number one. He took it upon himself to train Boba to finish Django's job, right? He knew that Django wanted to make him the better version of him. Right? And we knew that that's where Filoni was going at one point with those stills. We saw some of the unused footage of those scenes with Cad Bane and young Boba. So who better to explain it away than Cad Bane? Boba. I mean, you have that moment where Boba's like, well, let me tell you what happened. And you're just like, oh! Like, I just see that's where this is going to happen.
Let's make things a bit more interesting.
That run-in, or any other bounty hunter for that much. I mean, anybody that knows Boba enough to go, dude, I thought you got eaten by. I mean, there's your moment, But I mean, it's going to have to be him running into someone else. But right now, we're kind of hit saturation, where I think if we add any more people from any other films or any other project, the fan base, half of it's just going to be like, that's it, I'm done.
Is this not exactly what we've asked for, though? It's funny because I've seen a lot of trepidation about, it's too many characters from Rebels and Clone Wars and too much baggage. Bring it in, bring it on. I've been explicitly asking for this, but there was something. And maybe this is, I've only seen the episode once. That's the thing. I haven't had a chance to go back and rewatch it. But it's so in your face. It's such a big fan moment. It felt like I should be watching that clip sort of debut at Star Wars Celebration and like the crowd going wild, but just kind of sitting in my living room. When I see Slave One round the corner, it's like, I had a moment, but I'm not sure it was the moment that they were looking for, because it's the lack of context. And I think I was looking for more context, and that's just not what this episode was. This was not the origin of Boba Fett's survival of the Sarlacc pit. And I understand that. Right. I understand I'm being a selfish, whiny Star Wars fan. So I get that. But I do think that there's room for that in the future of telling us more or of showing us more and not telling us. Because it's like, I survived the Sarlacc pit. I don't remember the line from the episode. I remember the line from the old expanded universe from the Tales of the Bounty Hunters. It was like, the Sarlacc found me rather indigestible. That was the line from the book. I'll never forget that line. But I don't know, man. I loved it. There's a couple. The fan community just went nuts, and understandably so. It was all over social media. It was and this may have been part of my lack of wow factor when I first watched the episode. Is it was spoiled. It was spoiled. I saw it. It was spoiled. I tried not to. I tried to avoid social media, and I literally had opened Twitter to post something, and I wasn't gonna look at anything, but I did that little thing. I was like instinctively just kind of did a little scroll. Just like a little crack hit of social media that you do, it's just like a little bit, you can't help yourself. And then there it was, and it was one of those sort of non-spoilers, like, oh, I can't believe that, that one iconic Mandalorian is back. Not a spoiler, it's like something like that. But they, rough. I put it in the notes, but they released this really cool poster. I'll throw a link to it in the YouTube chat, guys, as well. But of Boba Fett, and once the episode has actually came out, and they've been doing that. They've been releasing these character posters as the episodes debut, and you can kind of see the visual. His armor's beat up, like it is rust bucket.
You think he'll keep it like that, or do you think that the pop vinyl Boba Fett that never looked like Boba Fett is going to be the new paint scheme?
The pop vinyl Boba, like
you remember the one where it's like it's got like the skull face in the middle of the helmet, and he's like all black, and there's like all these different versions of it. And I'm like, that's not Boba Fett. Like, he didn't have his armor like that. I don't know. But that's when I had to do my Star Wars fan, being a Star Wars fan. I got to say, though, I like the look of just him throwing the armor on top of what he's got. Like, man, I liked it when Cobb was wearing it. I like seeing Boba wear it. I like the pitted look of it and stuff. Like, it's everything I had hoped the armor post Sarlacc would look.
Yeah.
I definitely, though, wonder if he's going to change the look. I mean, that's something I've noticed with the Mandalorians at this point.
Sure.
Is they definitely are changing up their armor as often as they can, or the look of the main character is changing a lot. So I could see them doing similar with Fett. But what I don't see is Fett's being a character that's going to stick around post this season. I think
you don't
that
think
he's
so?
going to help get the child, and then I think Boba's got other things to do. And I see if Fett comes back, it'll be when we go back to Mandalore, and I want to see him kind of caught up in things. I want to see Din caught up in things. I mean, how would you like to see a 3-way runoff for Mandalore with Fett being one of them, Bo-Katan, and Din? Like, I mean, who are you going to vote for? They're all awesome. They all are worthy. I don't think all of them would want it. I think actually only one of them would really want it. But, I mean, just, thinking about those options, and you think, when you first hear, the title The Mandalorian, and you knew it's going to deal with the culture, you're like, okay, Sabine might show up, Bo-Katan might show up, Fen-Ra might show up, all these characters that you're like, dude, they could be there in the wings. We could see them finally in live action. Like, my brain just starts ticking away with all these options and opportunities and stuff. And it's exciting to see the characters, like you said, leading up to an Avengers moment for Din and group. Oh, God, man, talk about the dream team of freaking assassins right now.
Yep. No, it'd be amazing. I'd go nuts. Like, and I think that's Boba Fett's role is going to be a little limited in the series, because I think you have to be sparing. Now, but the real question is this a soft launch? Are they going to do a Boba Fett series? Do you think that that's something that they're trying to test out here?
I see, and I'm glad you bring that up, because one of the things that I hear a lot when I hear all these characters, or it's a bad thing, right? It's bad that we're bringing in these characters, is that they're being marketed for their own show. And it's like, where is the example of that? Where have we had that happen yet? I mean, we haven't had any of these shows.
You are right. If we're worried about if it's like a backdoor pilot like they've done before, it's not exactly the best backdoor pilot in that, like, it hasn't worked or been announced so far. At least they certainly didn't do it with season 1, and maybe they are. Maybe the season 2 is exactly what they're going to be doing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I that's where I'm like, I don't know what they would tell with Boba Fett that they couldn't tell as part of the narrative of Din's story from the Mandalorian culture side of things, or even the bounty hunting side of things, because in a lot of ways, Din is basically Boba 2.0. He's the Dash Lightyear of
Dash Rendar,
of, Han Solo's for Boba Fett.
Yeah,
I mean, he's Fett Light. So I don't know. I mean, to me, I think it would be cool. I would be down to watch that show, but I'm still waiting for Cassian Andor, which, I mean, in that regard, that was a movie spinning the show off. And like, I'm down for more of those. We could think of some examples from the movies that we could see spin out. I mean, I'd love to see Snoke and Me.
Yeah. Snoke and Me, the just as a series. That'd be pretty sweet. Well, we could talk about the Fett all day. I'm not going to lie. It'd be amazing. But we do have a few other news stories that we can talk. And like I said, you can listen to MandoCast for a full breakdown, or Ion Cannon, both of those shows on the network at StarWarsReport.com. You can find them there wherever you download podcasts. Which, by the way, a shout out to the chat, Adam, working on getting them on Stitcher. So, but yes, I do want to ask you though about, since especially as an EU guy and host of Star Wars Beyond the Films, we got cover art and an announcement for the High Republic Rising Storm. And I kind of wanted to get your reaction to it. Now, Rising Storm, this is the novel from Cavan Scott, which is coming out next summer. Available July 6th, 2021. It's the second novel in this new era, this High Republic era of storytelling. And it's the sequel to, what was Light of the Jedi. And so it follows up the characters in Light of the Jedi. And it is called Star Wars The High Republic Rising Storm. Let me actually, I'll show you. You guys on YouTube will actually be able to see a nice sample of the cover art here too. But I wanted to kind of get your reaction and take your temperature now that we're super close to the next, era of Star Wars and fiction, the High Republic. I want to see how you feel as a fan about some of this cover art, and it's right around the corner now.
Oh, dude, I'm excited about the cover art. I'm excited about the premise of what's going on. And due to Beyond the Films, I've gotten access to Light of the Jedi, and I just finished the first chapter, and I was like, I was excited for this era.
Spoiler-free reaction?
Yeah, stay spoiler-free. Don't worry, guys. I won't spoil you.
What is it? Is it good? Is it good? Is it all right?
The first chapter is very good. And Charles Scholl knows how to write.
Yes, he does.
And I haven't gotten past that, but it was so good that I immediately was like, okay, you got me hooked in one chapter. Can you do it again? So I'm like, now I'm about to go into the next chapter and see if we're able to. But I'm just the premise of what's going on in this era was something I wasn't as excited for as I was the era itself. The hyperspace disturbance and everything. We've tongue-in-cheek poked at that on Beyond the Films, and I think we talked about it here about how it sounds like a ship or something blew up, but the way that first chapter goes and the way everything kind of sets things in motion, I was like, oh. I stopped, kind of had to pay a lot more attention to what's going on, dude. This is definitely exciting. And then seeing all the other books in the list of the press release and stuff, and then seeing this one coming, The Rising Storm, I was pretty dang excited about the premise of what's going on, because it does kind of give you the feeling like the disaster could be an attack. And if that's the case, like, oh my God. But even if it's not, I'm immediately more intrigued about the disaster than I ever was before. And it's just from one chapter. I was like, oh my God, man, I can't believe that he pulled me in this hard. Like, how you sink the hook on a fish? I definitely felt that by the time I got done with that first chapter. So I'm looking forward to getting into that a lot more. Talk about a golden age. You got the Mandalorian doing live action footage and stuff. And then you've got this whole new era of books and eventually comics and other kid stuff. And it's just exciting, because that, for me, the premise of the project itself has always been an exciting one, because as you know, I'm a big fan of the New Jedi Order. It was one of those type of projects that they collaborated on, very similar to what they're doing here. So, I think that that's going to be something that's really cool. Plus, I think almost every casual expanded universe fan has heard of the KOTOR series, whether it be the video game or the comics, and both of which are well renowned. So going back in the past like that to the High Republic era, when the Republic, is at its height, the Jedi are at their height, and the way it describes the way the Jedi Order is functioning is very similar in a lot of ways to what we had in Legends. So it's got that cool feel to it. But man, I'm really excited because you got the Lord of the Rings posters and stuff. In a lot of ways, it feels like that whole watchtower aspect, like they're out there and they've got their little watch post kind of set up. And I'm excited to see what the Jedi are up to. So far I haven't read anything about what they're doing in the book. So it's all I've got is from the publishing stuff that they put out there. And I'm like, I want to know more. You see all these different weapons that they have, all the different character models that they have for the series and stuff. And they look badass.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see how successful it is, because it has to sink you in on that first go, right? That first chapter. So I'm excited. Once you actually finish it, I too actually got a early presser for those books. I know they come out soon, in a few weeks, right after Christmas. So that'll be kind of cool.
The hardest part was they gave me 3. And I'm like, which, I know which order to go in because I've been following the press releases, but I'm like, do I have to stick that? And they said, no, you don't have to. They're designed in the aspect that you could kind of pick any one. But I was like thinking about that. I'm like, man, I want to start with the first one, but I got 3 of them. And then this next one sounds really interesting. And that's what's hard is like, it's all building this era, but each one sounds awesome. It's like, where do you jump in first? And unfortunately, we're all new to this one, so nobody can be like, well, what do you like? And I'll just tailor that choice to your preference. No, we're all going to find this out together.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. Well, I got to hit one more news story here for the episode. Teased it in the social media earlier today. It's Kenobi.
Ooh.
We've got some rumors on Kenobi, the Kenobi series, starting shooting in January 2021. This is according to the Film and Industry Television Alliance. They've posted that the hotly anticipated Kenobi series is coming to Disney Plus in 2022, and that's going to start shooting earlier than expected. They actually mentioned 2 locations, one in Boston, Massachusetts, and also in London in the UK. Probably at Pinewood Studios, one would assume. But of course, as a reminder, what we know so far about the Kenobi series is that, yes, Ewan McGregor is returning, and that Deborah Chow from The Mandalorian will be the new showrunner. But that's kind of all we know. We know that they've been going back and forth on the scripting and a lot of that stuff for a while. But that's kind of the limit of what we know. I know there's a lot of there's the Kenobi novel that we had. There's been the Mythos statue. There's this mythological quality to what Obi-Wan Kenobi was up to in those intervening years on Tatooine, and we saw that brief taste in Star Wars Rebels. So it's definitely the Star Wars project I'm most excited about. Just to be transparent on it, like that is what I'm most excited about as a fan right now. So it's good to know that they are actually on track and evidently starting film sooner than we thought they were.
Right. Well, what's exciting too is you think about what did we have before. I mean, we've seen and we're watching them do it with The Mandalorian as they're retooling aspects of stories and events. And you mentioned the Kenobi book from Legends, but the other one was The Last of the Jedi, which was the last of Jude Watson's young adult or young reader books. The first one dealt with young Anakin. Actually, the first one was about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan while Obi-Wan was still young. Then Obi-Wan as a master to young Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
And then during that series, we meet Ferris Olin, who was prized to be Anakin's nemesis, his big rival in the school. And through that story, spoiler alert, Ferris gets basically kicked out or leaves the Jedi Order over it. So then when you get to the next series, The Last of the Jedi, it said after Order 66, and like Ahsoka Tano, hey, how about that? He left the Order, so he wasn't a Jedi, so he didn't, die. But the whole premise of that, there is a scene in those books where Ferris finds out about Kenobi and finds out Kenobi's on Tatooine, gets a hold of Kenobi, talks to Kenobi and convinces Kenobi to leave Tatooine to help him save other Jedi. Very similar to what Cal was doing. Again, if you've listened to our talk on Rogue Transmissions, I haven't finished the Fallen Order game, so I don't know if Cal actually lives or dies in the game. So if he does die, I'm sorry. I'm assuming he's still alive and he's out there helping Jedi. So I'm like, hey, there's a good proxy there that you could use.
Yeah.
But at the end of that story, Kenobi, after doing what he needed to do, he basically tells Ferris, that was it. I'm never going to be able to leave Tatooine again. He basically lays it all on the line for Ferris. And what was cool about that story is when Kenobi goes back to Tatooine, Ferris chooses to do what Kenobi's doing for Luke to Leia. So he goes to Alderaan and he looks out over her and becomes like a royal attaché to Bail and is her lifelong bodyguard, which I thought was pretty cool. So, I mean, there's an opportunity in that regard where, we could tell a story where Kenobi leaves Tatooine, although I don't know if we need to. I mean, what would be so important that would drive Kenobi off of the planet? I mean, in the book, it was other Jedi, but I don't know if in canon Kenobi would make that choice. I think he's sacrificed too much of what it means to be a Jedi at this point to do anything but to look after Luke.
Interesting. That's a tough one. Do you think he would be able? Because there's other Jedi out there. Do you think that's something they would do?
That's a rough one, because the other side of that is we learn in Legends that Asherard Het also had survived and was on Tatooine and was hanging out with the Tusken Raiders. And they have a confrontation later when the Tuskens started coming too close to the Owen Lars farm. And in that confrontation, that's when Obi-Wan basically pulls off the mask off of Asherard, dishonors him in front of everybody, and basically says, "You got to leave the planet." So you've got something like that you could do as well. But I would like to see Kenobi leave the planet, but if he doesn't, I find it harder, aside from the fact that I love Ewan McGregor's reprising of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I think he can do no wrong. I just don't know what we would be getting aside from possible something more spiritual about him talking and communing with Qui-Gon, maybe finding a way to do a Force, coffee can with string to Yoda. I do think
there's, but I do think you're on the right track in when you're talking about the spiritual thing. I think there's a limited amount of storytelling you could do for a series like this. I think there's a reason this probably will be a mini series. And be like 6 episodes, 8 episodes at the most, because I really do think that's the limit of what they can tell without compromising the fact from a story perspective that Obi-Wan is literally there to be the guardian of Luke and stay hidden and keep him hidden. That's literally his whole mission. And there's something poetic about his patience to be on that desert planet in that little hut. That little rack. Besides happy hour at the Mos Eisley Cantina, he was pretty much just stuck there.
Anything that takes him off planet risks that mission.
Exactly.
Because I was like, you could do a world between worlds where, say, somebody opens up a portal and he gets to go on these events. But him even leaving to go on the adventure puts everything at risk. Yeah, we know that he came back. Yeah. But he didn't know. So, I mean, I lean more towards they're going to have to stay on Tatooine. But man, I don't want them to. I really don't want them to. I like the Kenobi book, but that was the one thing about it that I didn't really care for, was that they were on the planet the whole time. But that one was a good story, though. I mean, and how would you feel if they loosely adapted that and made that the series? Just
the book
enough.
Well, see, and that's the thing. So I never read John Jackson Miller's Kenobi book, but it is interesting to me that you're telling me that they were able to keep it on planet. Did it get boring, like being stuck on the sand planet?
No, it was more the hardships of the day-to-day struggle and stuff, and then you had the sand people aspect of the story. But man, it's hard for me. The bench part of that storytelling was Last of the Jedi, because he got to go on that last adventure, and I think that was always the saddest thing about the Kenobi character, was that after Luke is born, he stops everything. I mean, he sacrifices it all, him and Yoda.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was always one of the things about not seeing the Jedi continue after Luke. It's like, man, I don't want there to be a Last of the Jedi. The Jedi need to flourish, dang it.
When the last of the Jedi you are. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be I will stay pinned. It's not like the biggest Kenobi update, but it's nice to actually have some kind of update and just like knowing it's happening. And the funny thing is, as we're recording this podcast, this Thursday is scheduled the big investor call from Disney, where they're going to talk about a lot of releases, including Disney Plus, and I have a feeling we're going to get some announcements for Star Wars stuff, including Kenobi, Cassian Andor, the live-action movies. So I imagine we'll be doing like a emergency podcast on that, probably on the Patreon. We'll probably do an emergency Rogue Transmissions and get some reaction to that news when it breaks. Because a couple days after this podcast comes out, guys, I have a sneaking suspicion that announcement's going to have been made. So I think we'll have to wait and see what happens with that to get a final word on what's happening in the world of Star Wars on Disney Plus.
He's worth a lot to me. As you wish.
You know, that sounder has never been so relevant. Oh, man. So let's talk about it. It's Boba's Bounty, you know. We're talking about what we've watched, listened to, read in the world of Star Wars. Something that's just getting our goat going as fans. Mr. Hurleman, why don't you kick us off this week?
Well, I have secured my pre-order for 2 Bad Batch Black Series figures, Hunter Crosshair and Asajj Ventress.
What?
So that was pretty stoked. And then I've slowly started to receive my pre-orders from back in July from Walmart. I got Ahsoka Tano from Mandalore behind me.
I'm sorry, when was the pre-order?
Yes, July. I'm still waiting for a bunch of them. I haven't got the 2 troopers that are supposed to sit next to Ahsoka Tano behind me. I'm still waiting on them. I'm waiting for the Camoan stormtrooper. He hasn't arrived. But I did get the Mandalorian Loyalist, and I did get the Super Commando, a.k.a. the Maldalorian. They're up behind... right up behind the flag there.
Yep.
And I moved Django, which is now, if you're looking on the video, above my head. And actually, no, that one's Boba Fett, and Django's off to the side there. But I moved them over. I got a whole Mandalorian corner because I've got Din up there. I've got the other Jon Favreau's Mandalorian character. I've got the yeah, man. I've been having a lot of fun.
I love it.
My Black Series. I
love it.
I haven't got Cad Bane though. Like he slid through my fingers, man. I'm dying over here.
That's a tough one. I have been reading more Star Wars comics. In fact, that's kind of been my Boba's Bounty the last few weeks. Mark has been, I caught up on Kylo Ren. We talked about that. Caught up on the new Vader comic. Talked about that. The new Star Wars mainline comic, now set post Empire Strikes Back. We've moved into that. Nice. And then most recently, I've just dug into the Age of Rebellion comics. And I read the first. I honestly, my brain is usually decent about it. I literally don't remember the first issue because I remember the second issue. The second issue is Shirtless Tarkin.
Shirtless Tarkin. I want to say the Age of stories all have that feel where you're like, what was that?
What was it? What happened there?
I literally just finished this story.
Well, let me tell you what's memorable. Buff shirtless Tarkin. It's not. It was a little weird. It was weird. It was kind of cool. It's like him and all the Death Star gunners, and he has to be able to. Mild spoilers, guys, but you know, the comic's been out. But he has to like do these simulations to make sure that when the moment happens, when the time is that you have to pull the trigger, all the gunners have to like operate this big sequence to fire the primary ignition sequence. Toot, toot, blue, that one, right? To do that, he has to be able to trust all of his gunners, and some of them are a little bit pansies. But all that's cool, but the scene where he just like decides to have like a boxing match and rip off his shirt and like beat up a guy because you're supposed to be all scarred up if you're cool. It was weird. It was very, very weird. It was weird.
Stop and take it into context though. Think about, you're looking at it in comic, and I'm sure it's weird. But if you think about the age the actor was when he was playing that, like, that's a badass individual, man. I mean, your grandpa rips off his shirt, and he's like, "Come on, whippersnapper!" And you're like, "Oh, shoot! Oh,
listen, I don't know what kind of substances that Williff has been using, but man, he's pretty. I should have had the actual comic with me in hand, because that'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, that's a good example. That's what I've been reading, just on a big comics kick. I'm excited to finish the rest of Age of. I have and I read them a while back. A few of the Age of, the Republic, Age of Resistance. So Rebellion is I think the last one that I'm behind on, that I'm catching up. But it's pretty cool. I'm enjoying it, and I thoroughly enjoyed the Vader and the most recent Star Wars line and the Kylo Ren comic. Marvel's turning out more great stories in comic book form. So if you guys haven't, and if you're not in on the comic book side of things, now they're great stocking stuffers, and they're pretty cheap to get the trade paperbacks on Amazon. That's my go-to. I don't get them issue by issue, but when the trade paperback comes out, I'm usually picking it up.
Oh man, and it's a good time if you're one of those like to come in late and collect things.
Yeah.
Did you see that the old Knights of the Old Republic with Zane Carrick? They're doing a giant hardcover edition coming out of that from Legends. I'm like,
what? No way.
Yeah,
they're still doing that.
I don't need it, but I want it.
Yeah, but I want it. All right, let's hit this. Let's tag this email on our way out. It's from Brian Bodner. He's a longtime listener and big supporter of us. He says, "Hey Riley, huge fan of the show. Haven't missed an episode yet. Well, thank you. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the Mandalorian series and how it's going to fit into the larger picture. I've been saying for weeks now, and it seems to be coming to fruition, that Mandalorian is going to keep the formula of the story is the journey, aka the lone gunslinger in the Outer Rim, while at the same time cleaning up a lot of other narrative issues Disney has created in the background, like Ahsoka looking for Ezra and Thrawn, Snoke clones on Navarro, Bo-Katan and the Darksaber. I equate it to Jango Fett. Jango's role on Kamino literally shaped the fate of the galaxy, and he was never self-aware enough to comprehend or realize that. I think Din Djarin and Grogu, I like the appropriate name use, Brian, will be the same way, especially since Disney may honestly need to remove Grogu from this galaxy in some way to save him from the slaughter by the Knights of Ren. Maybe he'll end up helping the Chiss Ascendancy. I don't know. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the role that the Mando will play in the larger overarching galactic story. And I think, Brian, the way I can best answer that is what they've introduced so far with Ahsoka. I really do think the Ahsoka going off to find Thrawn and the continuation of that Rebels plot is the greatest potential here. And I think that's kind of always been the case, because Rebels, even though on the surface you don't really, and I never really would have thought of it this way. But as I look back on Rebels, I think it did a good job of sort of setting the stage for what would happen with Luke Skywalker, and ultimately, the fate of the galaxy, Luke Skywalker versus the Emperor redeeming Vader, the core story of the original trilogy. Rebels does a pretty good job kind of setting that up. Like, even the fact that, all the stuff that was going on with Maul, all these sort of side stories and characters left over from Clone Wars and stuff, all the stuff that's still going on outside of that core story, but could have affected it. Like, Maul could have discovered, young Luke. Maybe he tried to capture him and turn him into his own apprentice and overthrow the Emperor. But ultimately, Rebels did a kind of interesting job of sort of linking Maul to the main characters, and it's not just the story of how the rebellion started, but it kind of tied into Luke's story, and it tied into how, like, the Emperor wanted to sort of discover the Jedi Temple on Lothal, like the idea of him trying to root out Luke Skywalker before it was Luke Skywalker's time, and destroy the Jedi while the Jedi still remained in hiding, particularly Yoda and Ben. I think the Rebels did a good job of sort of touching on that story and laying that foundation. And then now that story's concluded, there's still all these threads that Rebels kind of left, particularly Thrawn and Bo-Katan and Ahsoka. And Ezra. That I think that the Mandalorian has a lot of potential to kind of sew up. Now, I always found the most compelling parts of Rebels to be the parts that tied directly into the, looming original trilogy story. But man, I would be curious to see how well they could incorporate Thrawn and Bo-Katan. I think that's, honestly, Brian, like it based on your email, that's what I think the biggest, larger story in the galaxy is, because what else are you going to do? Like, I don't know what you do post Return of the Jedi, but it's still long before the rise of the Resistance and the rise of the First Order.
Right. And Grogu is the only reason why the Jedi narrative needs to be in the show. The whole battle for Mandalore seems like a foregone conclusion. Like that's where we're clearly going to end up.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
I don't know though, but when I think about it, I'm just like, man, there's so many angles there that I just absolutely get excited about.
Yeah.
And when I think about, the way that they play on what we don't know later, once a story is completed, when they add to another story, when Yoda says there is another, we could find out that Ezra's that other because he shares a birthday with Luke and Leia. He was trained before Luke was.
Mm-hmm.
He basically was a Jedi and then takes and leaps off with Thrawn. So, I mean, the question of what are we going to do with Grogu? Well, we know Ahsoka's not going to train him. And if he doesn't get trained by Luke, maybe it's Ezra.
Interesting. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think there's I'm not as sure with Ezra, because I don't think Ezra ever quite connected with the audience in the way that Bo-Katan and Ahsoka did, particularly Ahsoka. I think Ahsoka's going to be at the center of whatever happens in The Mandalorian in the future, or maybe a spin-off series that they're looking at for a possibility. So I
think Ahsoka's only going to be back one, maybe two more times.
Yeah,
I think she'll show back up one more time to realize that she needs to help find Ezra to get to Thrawn, and then we'll see her go off to find Sabine, and that'll be, we're like, oh, we're finally caught up to Rebels ending, and that'll be it. And whatever they do with her afterwards, I don't think we're going to see it in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, maybe probably not. Maybe that they'll set it up, but again, maybe we will find out this Thursday. Well, folks, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Star Wars Report podcast. Brian, thanks for shooting us an email, man. You can email us, starwarsreport@gmail.com. We'll read your email on the show. Look at that. Just like that. It's that easy. Just like Brian did. You can also stay in touch between shows. Follow us on social media. It's at Star Wars Report. That's for Twitter as well as Facebook, facebook.com/Star Wars Report. It's really easy. If you enjoy the podcast, especially if you listen to us on the Apple Podcasts app, we'd really appreciate a rating and review. But really biggest right now that I want to plug is our weekly gathering, our little virtual cantina. StarWarsReport.com/EchoBase. It's a cold cantina. It's freezing, in fact. But join us live, StarWarsReport.com/EchoBase. Or just my YouTube channel. Search for Riley Blanton on YouTube, and we'll be live streaming pretty much each and every week leading up to, the New Year's, where we will probably be doing a live stream for the Death Star explosion at midnight. So fun times, hanging out, wanting to build a community. To everybody in the chat, JDL, Kurt, Adam, Julian, I'm sure I'm missing Bricken, like all of you guys who've been in the chat, hanging out. Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Join us each and every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. StarWarsReport.com/EchoBase. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters. You too can support the Star Wars Report podcast and get some sweet bonus content. Our weekly Rogue Transmissions podcast, where we're just kind of setting up the show, pre-show conversation and chit-chat. Good times. We're always talking. And probably this week we'll be doing a reaction on an instant reaction to whatever Star Wars news may or may not come from this earnings call that we're expecting this week. So I'll be excited to see where that goes. So stay tuned for that. Mr. Hurlman, tell the good people where they can find you.
Oh, Logical Rogue 2. I'm out there on the social webs. Beyond the Films, I do with Jim Lehane. Used to do episodes with Nathan P. Butler. You can catch those all on the Star Wars Report website, 2nd Airborne Division of Podcasts at www.starwarsreport.com.
Nice. It makes it's that easy. Super easy. You can also follow me on Twitter. It's at The Riley Guy. Same thing for Instagram, which is my favorite place to hang out on social media. The Riley Guy, RILEY. That's a great way to stay in touch in between shows. We'll be back with more Mandalorian talk, with reactions to whatever the future of Star Wars on Disney Plus is. We're just here having fun with Star Wars, making Star Wars fun, and just talking about it like we always have. The Star Wars Report podcast. Until next time, folks, may the Force be with you, and remember, many Bothans died to bring you this podcast. See you guys. Thanks. Next week.